Midnight. 5 years ago, they lowered her coffin into the frozen ground of Kentwell churchyard. Her family wore black. Her father wept or pretended to. Nobody questioned the sealed casket. Nobody asked why the undertaker refused to open it for a final viewing. Tonight, the Duke of Ravensmore is about to learn why. 012. The candles in Ravensmore Hall had long since guttered out. Nathaniel Ashworth, 7th Duke of Ravensmore, walked the east corridor alone, the way he did most nights when sleep refused him. 5 years in this house, and he still moved through it like a stranger, a man who had inherited grief along with the title. He had loved once, briefly, foolishly, completely. Her name had been Cecilia Hartwell, the daughter of a baronet with more pride than money. They had courted in secret for a single summer before his regiment shipped him to the peninsula. The letter reached him in Lisbon. Cecilia has succumbed to a fever. The family requests privacy in their grief. He had not been permitted to see the body. He had not questioned it, not then. Grief does not ask questions. It only kneels at gravesides and says goodbye. 103. Nathaniel turned into the west sitting room, intending only to pour a drink and stare at the dying fire until dawn. He stopped in the doorway. A woman knelt at the hearth, sleeves rolled to the elbow, scrubbing ash from the stone with the kind of grim, mechanical focus that belonged to someone who had done this task 10,000 times before. Her uniform marked her as one of the newer laundry maids, a face he did not recognize among his 70-odd staff. "The fire can wait until morning," he said. "Go to bed." She flinched at his voice but did not turn. "Nearly finished, Your Grace. Mrs. Pemberton wants it done before the frost sets in the flue." Something in the cadence of her voice snagged at him. A ghost of an accent she was trying, and failing, to bury under a servant's flatness. He stepped closer without meaning to. "Look at me," he said quietly. She hesitated. Then she turned. 214. The glass in his hand slipped and shattered against the floor. It was her face. Thinner, harder. A faint scar now interrupting one dark eyebrow, but unmistakably hers. The same storm-colored eyes that had haunted 5 years of his dreams stared back at him now, wide with terror rather than recognition. "Cecilia," he said. The name felt foreign after so long unused. "I don't know who that is, Your Grace," she said, too quickly. "My name is Anne." "You're lying." His voice cracked down the middle. "I buried you. I stood at your grave in the rain." Her composure broke all at once. She sat back on her heels, ash-streaked hands trembling in her lap, and when she spoke again, it was in her own voice, the voice he remembered, roughened by years he knew nothing about. "You buried an empty coffin, Nathaniel. My father sold me before you'd even left England." 320. The story came out slowly, in fragments, as though each sentence cost her something to hand over. Her father had gambled away the last of the family's fortune within a year of Nathaniel's departure. A wealthy widower named Josiah Renwick had offered to settle every debt, in exchange for Cecilia's hand. When she refused, her father staged her death rather than lose face in front of his creditors. A hollow coffin. A hired physician who signed whatever was placed in front of him. A wedding conducted a county away under a new name before a congregation that had never heard of Cecilia Hartwell. Renwick was not a kind man, she said, staring at the hearth rather than at Nathaniel. When he died 2 winters ago, his nephew inherited everything, including the debts I never knew existed. I left with nothing but the clothes on my back and enough sense not to use my own name again. Why didn't you come to me? She looked up at him then, and the anger in her eyes was sharper than any grief. Come to you as what? A runaway widow with no proof of who she was? You were a duke by then, Nathaniel. I was a ghost with a debt collector's warrant hanging over her head. I chose to disappear properly this time. For 35. Nathaniel knelt in the ash beside her, uncaring of his ruined trousers, and took her scarred hands in his. You are done disappearing, he said. Whatever debts follow you, whatever name they gave you, they end tonight. She wanted to believe him. He could see it in the way her fingers curled, just slightly around his. But 5 years of surviving on nothing but her own wits had taught her not to trust rescue when it arrived wearing a title. Renwick's nephew still holds papers with my false name on them, she warned. If he learns I'm alive, he'll claim I owe him for every year I hid from his uncle's debts. He's already ruined 2 other women that way. Then we make sure he never gets the chance. 540. What followed was not a fairy tale. It was a campaign. Over the following weeks, Cecilia, no longer hiding as and no longer scrubbing another family's hearth, worked alongside Nathaniel's solicitor to trace every fraudulent document Renwick's nephew had used to entrap desperate women into false debts. She knew the man's habits, his ledgers, the crooked magistrate he paid to look the other way. Where Nathaniel had rank and money, Cecilia had 5 years of hard-won cunning, and together they were more dangerous than either alone. It took a forged marriage record, a bribed clerk's testimony, and one very uncomfortable morning in front of the local magistrate. But within 2 months, the nephew's scheme collapsed entirely, and with it, any claim on Cecilia's false identity. 650. On a clear morning in early spring, Nathaniel found her in the same west sitting room, standing at the hearth she had once scrubbed on her knees. The fire burned cleanly behind her. "They've stopped calling me and," she said without turning. "The staff don't quite know what to call me now." "They can call you Duchess," Nathaniel said, "if you'll have the title." She turned to face him. Not the frightened maid from that first night, not the frightened bride who'd vanished 5 years ago, but a woman who had rebuilt herself twice over and refused to be erased a third time. "I'm not the girl you knew," she said. "I don't trust easily. I still check the locks on my door twice before I sleep." "I'm not the boy who left for the peninsula either," he said. "I don't want easy. I want you exactly as you are now." 745. She crossed the room and, for the first time in 5 years, let herself be found. Their story isn't about a knight rescuing a damsel from a tower. It's about a woman who survived being erased, and a man who refused to let her disappear a second time. If this story of resilience, secrets, and second chances moved you, hit like to support the channel. Share it with someone who loves a slow-burn historical romance, and subscribe for more.